like knowledge to me is really important. And so the more I think people know the contributions of the various communities that make up America, because so many people slander people of color, they slander women many times, they slander, particular points of view when it comes to religion. Like, people want to slander things, like they want to say bad things about people, dehumanize people, like the people out there who I think contribute to this really awful negative public discourse. And so I think if they knew, like, what all of these groups have contributed to America and have since the beginning and dawn of this nation, I think they would have a greater appreciation. Now, they can say it's fake news all they want, but it is my job. Part of my job is to, like, educate and inform people and inform myself, because half the time I don't know these ways. I did a piece on this amazing attorney in the 1930s, a woman by the name of Eunice Carter.
That brought down the mafia boss. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Who knew that?
Yeah.
The one woman and the one person of color on a team of 20 who a guy relied on and used to do. Thomas Dewey almost won the presidency based on, his support against Truman. Ultimately didn't, but imagine he would stump out there on civil rights and the rights of, all Americans. And Eunice was one of his, local lieutenants, and he would talk about her. But she was smart, because she was given, this is what I learned from Eunice. She was given the bottom of the barrel to go and investigate. Like, everybody else in that mob investigation was given murder, kidnapping, money laundering, racketeering, and she was given prostitution, which they absolutely did not think had any link to organized crime. And that's the only thing they were able to convict Lucky Luciano on. And so I say, so both of us, back to Mark and I have like this, we're always talking about things that we're talking about our people.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, we talk about news of the day, and we talk like those things, and how do we as human beings, like, educate those around us to what needs to be done to help people, really, because that's what it's about. You want to help people, right? And his work, the National Urban League doesn't just help black people. It's the National Urban League. If you come to an urban league center, no matter what you look like, no matter what you sound like, you're going to get help. And you say, I need help, you're going to get help. And I'm not like broadcasting to any one group. One of my favorite stories, very few people, and I learned a great lesson about it. I was in Ferguson, and I happened to see a flyer. It said "Witnessing Whiteness," and I was like, "What is that about?" And the woman at the United Way told me, that's a group of people who meet twice a month, and they talk about white privilege and racism, and they're trying to educate themselves, about all of this. And I said, "Wow, can I go in and can I meet with them? Can I shoot this?" She got permission, and I was talking to this 70-year-old man. There were people there from all walks of life. I said, one, why do you only open this up to white people? He said, because we don't know what we don't know, and we don't want to offend anyone in our questioning, in our ignorance, and we want to feel safe to ask these questions so we can be better educated. And I said, well, two, what kind of difference do you think you can make? He said, I can make all the difference. He said, because my Uncle Tom and my cousin Larry, he said they're not going to listen to a Barack Obama or a Jesse Jackson or any one of a number of other people who look a certain way or sound a certain way. But I'm their cousin, and I can penetrate. And So he said, I think Chris Rock's. And when he said that, I said, man, this guy's down. He said, I think Chris Rock said. He said, racism is not a black person's problem. Racism, this is a white man, 70-year-old white man. He said, racism is a white person's problem. And as a white person, it is up to me to help solve it. And so, every day with this, the beauty of my job is that I learn every single day. Something new, something I need to know, and something that could potentially make a huge difference in the lives of the people I'm reaching. I feel so alive. And I know when I go back home, I'm going to lose it. Yeah. And I knew that the routine of what we do every day and the planned life we live, there's something about knowing what your day will bring that takes away from that thrill of living. It's the sweet spot of life, right? Yeah. It's the adventure you're always looking for. That's probably one of the reasons why I love my job so much, is that every day is something unexpected can happen. Mm-hmm. Every day is different. The unexpected can oftentimes be awful. And but I try not to. I don't know. Maybe I'm an eternal optimist. I'm never looking at it as always being negative, but just the fact that the day will bring something new, or the day will teach me something, or I just don't know how it's going to end, is thrilling.
Yeah, unlimited opportunities and possibilities.
Now, I haven't felt the way I felt when every day for about 4 or 5 months I was like, I really didn't know where I was staying. I didn't know what I was eating. I didn't know where I was walking. That's a whole different. That's what people do. That's a sojourn. Yeah. That's I haven't felt that way. Okay. And maybe one day I can go back and really live in the land and live in new places. But this is pretty good.
Okay.
Where I'm at's pretty darn good.
Okay. Indeed. All right, let's jump into Yes or BS. You ready?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Jeannie, how much time do I have?
Matt, how much time do we have?
20
minutes. Are you good with that, Michelle?
Yeah.
Cool.
20 minutes?
Oh, wait. Let me just make sure nobody's trying to reach me.
Yeah, I can get through. So, Michelle, we have 20 minutes.
Okay, you got 20 minutes. I'm just making sure nobody's going. Okay. Okay.
All right. Number one. I actually need to get a little sound effect. A little button I can press. Being a parent has made you a better wife.
Has made me a better wife?
Mm-hmm. Yes or BS?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. It's like one or the other? Yes or BS?
Well, you can use Jeannie. Jeannie's
okay.
Yes, it's BS. That's her way of saying it's in the middle.
You
can say pass.
I'll pass.
Okay. That's a truth prescription first. Number two. Journalism 20 years ago had a different professional connotation.
What do you mean?
How journalists were perceived or viewed 20 years ago is different than
yes, now. Definitely. I doubt I would be on television, a network, 20 years ago. I really do. Just being, being who I am, and not necessarily the color I am or my hair or but what I bring to television wasn't necessarily, I think, at the network level. I mean, the close, like Jane Pauley, you saw spurts of that in her and Meredith Vieira, but most, and certainly Oprah, but she wasn't, like, her forte wasn't like hard news. Her forte was something else, yes.
The reason I asked the question is because you think about, somebody like Walter Cronkite, right? Who's kind of like the, epitome of journalism, quote unquote. And then fast forward now, you have, a kid on his in his blog calling himself a journalist.
Right.
So like,
well, that's a whole different thing. I don't necessarily like. There's this word called citizen journalist.
Okay.
And I can say I will call you're a citizen responder, but journalism is like, I'm sorry, like it's a profession. Yeah, I'm serious, because I'm sorry, my profession, you have got to know you got to know what we do, and it's yes, part of it is reporting, but like how you report and like what like what you take as fact, and doing your homework and making sure that you have all eyes,
sourcing your sources,
right, all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, and knowing like when there's an angle, or when there's a bias, or no, and we're always combating that, always, and checking ourselves and filtering the BS from the truth.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3. New Orleans has more culture than New York.
Oh, wow. Initially I have to say yes. Because first of all, it's when there are all these like caveats to that. Like, are there more culture versus, because it's like a big culture, and there are all these little facets to the big culture of New Orleans. Mm-hmm. It has an identifiable culture, right? Mm-hmm. That a lot of people, I don't want to say appropriate, but a lot of people take part of, right? And New York City has many cultures. Mm-hmm. So, it's different. A lot of people know New York City. If like New York City were the size of New Orleans, I don't think many people would know New York City around the world. New Orleans is less than 500,000 people, okay? And you can go to Muchachos, Kenya. You can go to I just got back from Cambodia. I was trying to think of that. You can go to Angkor Wat. You can go, I'm picking various countries, and you say I'm from New Orleans, and they're like, oh, New Orleans, jazz, Louis Armstrong, right? Gumbo, right? And in fact, it was funny. I was watching this movie. Oh, what movie was it? And this guy says, where are you from? And the woman says, where are you from? And he says, New Orleans, Louisiana. He says, New Orleans, Louisiana. And she said, is there any other? It was The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Okay.
Right? And so the actress asked, Brad Pitt. And he says, she's like, wait, nobody knows of Louisiana. They know New Orleans. And so I fear maybe some of my New York friends would, for its sheer size, New Orleans is hugely on the map. Jazz, the first true American art form, everyone knows, came from New Orleans. Mm-hmm. Like the cuisine, people all over the world. Do you know there are like restaurants, there are New Orleans restaurants in places like Osaka, Japan.
I'm sure. Mm-hmm.
And there's a Louis Armstrong club in Nice, France. Mm. There's like, I'm just saying that New York City is a place where people from all over the world came and deposited their cultures. That's what makes New York so unique, is that it is a repository of many cultures. But New Orleans birthed America's true, or one of America's true, like, distinguished cultures.
So the answer is yes.
That would be yes.
Number 4. This is a quote. Life's chief masterpiece is writing well.
You are bad. You went to my college yearbook for that one. No, that is, oh my gosh, that's John Sheffield. He was a 17th or 18th century writer, English writer. And I discovered that quote. There was a substitute teacher who would write quotes on the board, the chalkboard every day. And that was one that just stuck with me. It was the whole quote is, of all the arts in which the wise excel, life's chief masterpiece is writing well. And that became my mantra. Mm-hmm. It did. So what's the question?
Well, you answered it. Yes, you agree with it. Number 5. I thought it was a fantastic quote. I love it.
Thank you.
I love writing as well. All right, number 5. Mm-hmm. Michelle Miller.
Yes.
Will hold public office.
No. BS.
That was quick. Okay.
You do know my dad was a political office holder.
Yes, he ran for mayor. Yeah.
He ran for, no, actually he was a city councilman and a school board member. He ran for the state senate.
State senate, okay.
Yes.
I thought that I saw this brochure with him shaking Robert Kennedy's hand, and it said Miller for mayor. I thought in my mind maybe.
Okay, well maybe he did. I don't recall that. Maybe he did.
Yeah.
You're telling me something
win,
I didn't know. He did not win. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, but it said like, something like the quote was like leadership along the lines of the Kennedys or something like that.
Well,
I gotta show it to you. I'm gonna show it to you.
Can I tell you what was crazy? Yeah. When I worked at the LA Times, the reporter who covered my father in Compton, California, walked up to me with the article that he wrote on my dad about some office he was running for, and I thought that was crazy he would know I was this guy's daughter. And everything that he talked about was actually the platform that my husband had run on in New Orleans. Like, it's down to the letter. So what it tells you is that we really, the needs are still the needs.
The needs are still the needs. All right. Last one, number 6.
Yes, sir.
Interviewing is a gift, not a skill.
I think it's both. I mean, you can have a natural gift for it, but you can learn technique. There is, I think I have a natural gift for it, and I need to hone my technique better. I could be a much better interviewer if I study more on some of the skills, and I've been given some great little suggestions,
little feedback.
Some feedback.
All right.
I was always this kid who pushed the envelope in a way that wasn't, I was never demure.
Okay.
I guess I was always sort of, I hit things like, it was like I had to cut through in a way, and I thought it was being brave, but in many respects, it was being disrespectful. You know what I mean? Okay. It's like, maybe I could, you know what I'm saying? It was like I would charge forward and I would self-sabotage myself in ways to ensure that, I presume you gave me that. I'm sitting here and I'm learning something right here and now. But so it stems back to that. So I remember when they turned me down, I got really sick that night. Literally, I'd gone to an event, I'd eaten something, I got sick. My roommate Wendy Raquel Robinson, my roommate, shout out to her. She, so I had food poisoning.
Okay.
And she told me, she said, you know what, you can always pledge next year. And I said this, and this is why I believe speaking things out loud to the universe gets you what you ask for. I said to her, I said, I'm going to Africa next year. I'm doing my semester abroad. I said, I won't have time to do that. I said, I guess the 38 joules of iridescent splendor, which was the line that that decided on whether or not I was going to be an AKA. I said, we'll have to decide whether or not I become a national honoree.
Interesting.
And I said, because I won't be able to make it while I'm at Howard. And I remember saying, I guess I'll just have to be, if I'm going to be an AKA, I'll just have to be a national honoree.
Just like that.
Just like that. Like, it was such a random thing to say.
Yeah.
But it was obvious I wanted that. So it was like, because that's the ultimate acceptance.
Right.
Right? So that's one thing. And then, and so I went to Africa, and one of the great lessons of my time in Kenya and Tanzania was that I found out I was an American. First time really outside of the country, outside of the Caribbean or Mexico, but really sort of you land in the motherland, and if you have any form of education and you have this sort of Afrocentric lens that you're looking at Africa through, you go there and you're like, I'm home. And everyone there, it was me, 2 other black women, and 12, it was actually 11 white women and 1 white male. We were all there, but we were all lumped together when we were walking down the street. They called us Wazungu, which means foreigner.
Interesting.
And they called us that for about 2 months, or maybe it was a month, for about a month. And, through the process that I went through.
Did it have a negative connotation?
Kind of like, yeah. It's kind of like, if someone yells at you, foreigner, down the street, I mean, that's happening now. That's happening right now.
That's true. Yeah,
right?
Well, that's for different reasons, but yes, that's true.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not. Because when you look at what happened in Africa and many other colonial countries, they were invasions, really, by a power of people who sought to utilize the land and the resources. Maybe so. And it's interesting those people are now going back to those colonial establishments, and now they're like, wait a minute, you can't come in here. Wait a minute, you came into my country 100 or so years ago, and now. But anyway, that's probably something I shouldn't talk about. But I always found that really interesting. It was like, okay, your ancestors, it's okay for them to come over, and yet I want to come now and reap some of the rewards of being in your country, and I can't.
Right. Because
I'm not wanted.
Or they make it extremely difficult.
Right.
And arduous.
So all that's foreign policy. So we aren't going to talk about that. No. So but back to my
your
point.
Personal truth.
My personal truth is that I'm an American. And when they called us that for about a month, and we were in the process of sort of learning all about where we were and the people there. And I don't know, there must be some unpacking or unpeeling of the onion, because you are exposing your truth, right? Or your lack thereof, your ignorance to what is, right? And when you peel away, you sort of peel off some of that, what, if you want to call it, edge, or sort of like your like who you are as a being, so people see you as you are. Okay. People walking down the street wouldn't call us that anymore.
No.
There was a real sort of like, people would smile at us in a different way. We must have literally, when we got off the plane, walked around like Americans. Like, like we must have had a certain way we walked and a certain way we talked to people. I'm being really quite literal.
Yeah.
There was such an edge to us. And when that edge sort of evaporated, then it was like, okay, you're one of us now. But it was really interesting for me, because I say, you know what, I am a descendant of this great place.
Yeah.
But I really must be clear on who I am. I'm an American.
Yeah.
And I need to embrace that. And I'm an American of African descent, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
But I am who I am.
Yeah.
So I can imagine people today who were being told they're not American, who were born here like I was.
Yeah.
Being told that they aren't, and they're like, wait a minute, no, I'm really clear on this. I'm clear
right.
on who I am.
Right.
And for someone else to try, I was just watching an Instagram post, it was really very sad, because a man was screaming these obscenities at this woman in her car, and her 2-year-old daughter was in the back, and he's so angry, and he's telling her to go away, and he's calling her ugly, and calling her the B word, and taunting her. And actually Charles Blow commented on it. It was his post, and he assumed that this man was gay. And he said, as James Baldwin said, that the question of race or ethnicity will always come before the question of sexual orientation. So I guess it's further down the line, and therefore it doesn't apply. But it's that woman claimed to be an American, a Spanish-speaking American. I don't understand what's wrong with speaking a second language.
Well,
I really don't understand that. I wish I were more fluent in 2 or 3 others.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to, in terms of your personal truth, it goes back to acceptance, right?
Right.
You started off talking about how you were this wild child that was just, anti to everything.
Yeah.
And it sounds like your personal truth was you realizing that, you can be different but not contrary. It's almost like
exactly.
It's almost like you were just being different to
be
different. But you can also do that and not, ruffle any feathers or be destructive or be disrespectful as you use. And in this scenario you're talking about, when you went to this country, they weren't accepting you either, because you were different. So,
But to the story you initially asked me about, I was in Egypt. And I was having a conversation with a Muslim man who had married a German woman, and she had taken their child to Germany, and he would never know if he would see their child again. And we were having this political debate about, things that were happening in Egypt and the Middle East. At that point in time, the touchstone was Beirut, Lebanon. And there was concern there, and we were having this discussion about peace in the Middle East between Israel and some of its neighboring countries, and I mentioned the word liberty, and he said to me, yes, he said, but with freedom comes great responsibility. Americans don't understand that you have freedom to do things, but at what point do you say, this is going too far? You have the right to say pretty much anything through your words. You have the right to freedom of expression, freedom of the press. You have the right to speak your mind. But at what point do you cross a line from an ethical or a moral standpoint? And I think his point was, be responsible with your freedom. You can walk around naked. In some places, you have the right to do that. But at what point did you cross a line?
Yeah.
And I see that, we see that's a lesson for us today. It's like there are lots of thoughts that go through your mind. The question is, should you say all of them? And it was a very personal lesson for me, because I would say all sorts of things. This is, of course, certainly before I became a professional journalist, but I would say all sorts of things, not necessarily vulgar things, but whatever was on my mind. My friends would call it the non-filter button. And so I tried to be better at filtering, because I'm trying to utilize responsibility in my expression.
We rarely get too personal truth, but this is fantastic. The second personal truth is respect freedom.
Respect it.
I think that's huge.